All right. Well, thanks again for having me on the agenda to present our findings. So our firm was retained by the town to work with town staff and also a town steering committee to conduct a mixed-use development feasibility analysis. And our project scope included several tasks, which began with an assessment of the downtown project area to identify potential mixed-use development sites. This assessment also involved reaching out to community stakeholders to learn more about the commercial and residential market in town, obtain some input on sites that they felt might work well for development, and also try to identify potential partners or property owners who might be interested in redeveloping their property with a mixed-use development or selling their property to a developer. After identifying potential sites, the steering committee then narrowed the list down to 2 target sites for further analysis. And this included preparing conceptual site plans for each site to show how a building or buildings and on-site parking could be accommodated. We then prepared the development pro formas for each site to determine whether a mixed-use development is likely to be economically viable. And then finally, we concluded our work by offering a few suggestions on how the town could be proactive in working with a developer to help a project pencil out. So as I mentioned, the first thing we did was to conduct an assessment of the project area to identify sites that we felt could potentially work well for a mixed-use project. This slide is attempting to show the project area where we focused our search. It's a little bit hard to kind of see what's going on here, but basically the project area involved the yellow shaded areas, which for the most part encompassed the Depot Street corridor from the RK Miles properties to the roundabout on Main Street. It also included the corridor on Main Street South, headed toward, what's the name of that street? Oh, Equinox Terrace. And then Main Street North through the downtown up to about Barnumville Road. The site criteria that we use to identify and evaluate potential sites includes the following. We looked for larger lots of about 1 acre or more, preferably about 1.25 acres or more. And the reason for this is that a larger property is needed to accommodate a project with the density of development that was recommended in the Kennedy Market Analysis Report. And that report recommended a project consisting of about 10,000 square feet of commercial space and at least 40 residential units, if not more. And maximizing the residential density is important and necessary for a new mixed-use development to get a project even close to being economically viable. That residential density is key for these types of projects. Other criteria directing our search included properties with good visibility and access, primarily for the commercial uses. A relatively flat site was important to us to reduce the cost of site construction. Similarly, undeveloped land is preferable to avoid the extra cost of demolition and potential environmental issues. Other important criteria included being within close proximity or within walking distance to grocery stores, pharmacies, shops, restaurants, and other amenities. And also another criteria we looked at was a landowner's willingness to consider doing a project or maybe selling their land. So we saw that as a plus as well. So our search identified 13 properties that we felt had potential to be good candidates for a mixed-use development. These included several properties along Depot Street. I'll just give you a few examples, including This included vacant land next to the H&R Block building and near RK Miles, the undeveloped Grabbers property on the south side of Depot Street, across from Highland Avenue, and also the 301 Depot Street, which I think you all know is owned by the town and currently leased to, I think it's Vanderbilt, is that who it is? I believe so. We also identified a few properties heading south on Main Street, including Battenkill Plaza, the undeveloped parcel in front of the Hampton Inn, and also the Snowfall Plaza property across the street. Heading north on Main Street, we identified the Walgreens property and also the Green Mountain Village shops as potential candidates. And for all the candidate sites, we evaluated the strengths and the weaknesses of each of the sites, based on the site criteria that I just described. And then the steering committee narrowed the list down to 2 target sites for further analysis. And those 2 sites are the 301 Depot Street property, which is town-owned, and then the Hampton Inn parcel on Main Street. So I'm going to just briefly discuss the strengths and weaknesses, or the strengths of each site, and review the conceptual site plans that we prepared and which we feel would work well for a mixed use development on these 2 parcels. So I'll start with the 301 Depot Street. So here's an aerial showing that property. I'm assuming you're all familiar with it, but it's this this property here on the north side of Depot Street. It's kind of a wedge-shaped property located in between the Manchester Shopping Center with the Price Chopper, and then the other property on the other side is the, I don't know the name of this, but it's a commercial strip development with Starbucks and the Manchester House of Pizza. But some of the strengths that we saw in this property include its size. It's relatively large at 1.4 acres. It's mostly flat, except for the northern portion, which slopes up towards Center Hill Road. It has good visibility and access. It's well positioned in the market, being located next door to a grocery store and other shops and services. Also, the buildings are relatively new construction and appear to be in good condition and could be converted to other uses such as residential. And another big strength that we saw with this property is that it's owned by the town, so that the town is in a good position to dictate the type of development that could eventually occur on this site, and could potentially offer certain incentives that a private landowner might not be able or inclined to offer. Here's a few photos of the property. This photo is from the entrance on Depot, looking at the buildings, which the existing buildings on the property, which front the street. Very attractive buildings in relatively good condition. This photo is looking at the rear of a couple of the buildings. And then this photo down here is just a picture of the large paved parking lot. And you can see the slope at the very northern end that goes up toward Center Hill Road. This is a site plan, an existing site plan of the property, which is a little bit tough to read, but this is Depot Street out here with the main access coming off, and you can see the 3 separate buildings fronting on Depot Street. Each one of these buildings is 6,000 square feet, with 3,000 square feet on the first floor and 3,000 square feet on the second floor. And the historic use of them has been retail.